Other News is made possible with the financial support of Ariel Investments and John Rogers and generous Chicagoans like you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Robin Robinson. This is your Other News, where we believe in truth, fun, and blackness. The backstory today: local media and local networks, especially those like CanTV, have the power to ignite change, not just because of the stories they tell, but because they bring us together. They remind us that we're not isolated or limited to just watching what's happening. We are neighbors, and we are stronger when we share our truths, our struggles, and our solutions. Powerful stories come from the heart of our neighborhoods, from the streets we walk every day, the families we know, the voices that too often go unheard. This is why the over 400 local community broadcasting networks across this country need to be amplified and protected. They're dedicated to something vital, something that holds the key to who we are as a community: the power of access. Access to a platform, access to be a voice, access to the tools of communication that can shape our understanding of each other, of our world, even of ourselves. This access is alive and tangible at CanTV. You can touch it. You can walk right through those doors. For more than 40 years, the doors have been open for people to speak, to share, to connect. CanTV invites you to not only be the audience, but to also be the storytellers, especially in recent years with a dynamic new leader. Darrious Hilmon believes in the intersection of media, community, and change. He champions the idea that access to information should not be a privilege for the few, but a right for the many. His work at CanTV reminds us that the voice of the community is not just something we hear, it's something we create. But what does community access really mean? We will find out from the man himself, Darrious Hilmon, the boss in this building, right after this break.
Hi, I'm Bianca Cotton. Join me Mondays at 7 p.m. as I sit in conversation with incredible, dynamic, and complex Chicagoans who peel back the layers, living lessons, the joy, and the pain behind their confident smiles. Join the conversation Mondays at 7 p.m. on CanTV Cable Channel 19 and streaming on cantv.org and CanTV Plus app.
The lead story is about the leader here at CanTV, Executive Director Darrious Hilmon, everybody. Hello, boss man.
Hello, boss lady. Before you even start, I'm going to just say this is one of those moments 16 years plus ago when I moved to Chicago, and you were one of those faces. I did not have on my bingo card that 16 years later I would be sitting having this conversation. So it's a bit surreal, but I'm grateful for it.
Okay, so now that you've dated me, all right.
We were both 12.
Exactly, but I'm proud of my age and experience, so because nothing else to be about it. But you also have given me an opportunity to come out of my little semi-retirement and have a platform again that doesn't come with all of the baggage of previous platforms. Now, grateful and honored as I was to be where I was for so long, there were so many limitations. Community access television. You, here in Chicago, y'all celebrated 40 years last year.
Yeah.
So 40 years ago, it took kind of a protest movement to make it happen, did it not?
Yeah. This all began as cable was coming into markets. And part of that agreement, as you were taking airspace and charging for it, was to create space on those channels that still was accessible, community access or public access television. That's changed over the 20 plus years as our viewing habits have changed. So community access stations like CanTV around this country are finding ourselves going, what is our role in the world of TikTok and social media and things moving so quickly?
So basically, it became part of the deal. They said, you can't just come in our communities and lay cable and make money.
That's it.
You have to also
That's
give
literally
the
it. And for decades, organizations like CanTV were fully supported by franchise fees. To this day, we still are. But if you look at it, the world of 1983 where we all had cable.
Cable was king.
Cable was king, and the money was flowing. So it's not that cable, the franchise fees have been unfair. Their subscription base is what drives the franchise fees. So as the needs of our community changed, as viewing habits changed, just for cable as well. You know, when I joined this organization in April of 2022, I remember saying of 2022.
Right in the middle of the pandemic.
We were just coming out of it, just finding our way.
Mm-hmm.
Or was it 21? I can't remember now.
Okay.
But I remember saying to the search committee, I find it interesting. I don't know what we're going to do about that yet, but we need to do something. But it's interesting that I will be your executive director and I don't have cable, so I can't watch our programming.
Oh, so you had to problem solve for that, which was problem solving for a lot of people, because cutting the cord is part of the reason that those franchise fees are getting smaller and smaller. Same thing happened in mainstream broadcast television.
Absolutely.
Looked up one day and had half the advertisers that they'd had just the previous year. It happened very rapidly. So we got this opportunity, but I'm sure the cable companies didn't come in and say, "Oh, what can we support?" I noticed you had some voices that were just saying, "You must do this," and you have a documentary that's really good about the 40 years and how it all started. Gordon Quinn from Cartimkin Films. So some people who were already in the creative space of creating content said you can't just leave the community out of it.
You can. And again, I like to think of all of our partners as wonderful folks, but we both know that sometimes you need community advocates going, I'm watching you.
Right.
We want this, but we can't take away from the community. You can't be a neutral. You must bring something to the table. And you must be consistent about bringing that intervention or supports to a community. So all of those folks, when I look at our 40th anniversary special, we stand on those incredible folks' shoulders. And what we're doing now is taking what they established for us. Our mission is unchanged. It still is access and voice. But where public access television, where we've had a challenge, and I think commercial television has had this as well. How do we now deliver our mission the way that our audience wants to receive it, not the way we've been used to giving it to them? Because they will go elsewhere.
Well, and commercial television, though, has had an added aspect of this, which seems great because they can make a profit. Except on the flip side, they have to make a profit. And sometimes decisions are driven by that. Editorial decisions at one time were supposed to be immune from that. Sales and news were on different floors and didn't chat. That's not the case anymore.
Do you remember the time when, and I remember hearing this going, this is not going to end well, when news divisions were moved under entertainment at some of the networks, and you went, no good's going to come from this.
No good's going to come of it. Well, just like I hate the term news personality, right? Either you're a news person or you're not, right? I mean, not that you don't have personality, but that should not be the number one thing. So you came here in either 21 or 22, whichever one it was. I know time flies when you're working yourself to death.
I'll be 3 years, April of 2025.
Okay.
So
all right. So we'll just back. I'm not good at math, and it doesn't matter, because what I want to know is, did you have a background in television and content creation, or how did this happen?
I'm going to tell you, Robin. I'm living proof of divine order and taking the scenic route to your dreams. I have a degree in communication from the University of Michigan.
Okay.
I started working WGLB in Detroit, WTVS, the public broadcasting station in Detroit, and I wanted to be you. The male version, or I'd settle for being you. Like truly journalists with gravitas and the power of words and platform and giving people voice. And I got out of college because I had to leave to start making money. So I was like, graduate, get a job. And I started at a radio station, and I went, unless I'm Robin Robinson in Chicago or Bill Bonds in Detroit or Beverly Payne in Detroit, I'm not going to make enough to eat. And they're not going to listen to me. I found myself in newsrooms very early on. I loved the written word. And I remember one time I was working at QRS in Detroit, and the leaders, the news director, there was a mistake that happened, and they just immediately, I could hear it. I mean, he's not qualified to do this. I don't know why we blah, 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 blah. It was not my fault. It was the technology that they hadn't removed something. And I remember that moment.
But even if it was a mistake, people do make mistakes.
The
on their
default
way
position was, he doesn't belong here.
Which they might have thought before that ever happened.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it was at that moment that I said, I love this, but there's other ways to do it because I need to have some control. And I was already saying it would be years, and they were going to make it very difficult to get to a Robin Robinson or Bill Bonds. So I moved into advertising and communications and public relations. And that still allowed me to craft messages, but I had more control. So I became—
It paid better, didn't it?
It paid better. And when I worked for years at a company called Global Hue, which used to be Don Coleman. So Burrell is here in Chicago. Don Coleman was their major competition for multicultural accounts.
So-called.
That stuff.
For the black business.
The black business. And then they added Brown in there, you know, as a gift. So I did that for years, then found my way back into nonprofit, and then found my way here. I was the executive director of Chicago State Foundation.
Let's stop right there,
Okay.
because leadership does count. And let's understand that before Z. Scott became the president of Chicago State, that there was no foundation. There was other, most schools have a money-making
There was a
arm.
foundation that was closed.
Right.
Right. So there was no foundation.
And we were all supposed to be happy that they didn't close the whole school, right? So, but that you see how it's
matters.
coming up
Yeah.
now, right? So the foundation.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. So
Yeah.
you were the you headed the foundation.
And part of what got me there is because I had worked with Z and Andy Zopp, who hosts the show.
That's how you pulled me in here. I remember.
It's all planned.
Chicago Newsroom 2.0.
But it goes back to what we talk about. News, community is relationships. And in a market like Chicago, they can be incredibly transactional. Community matters. So I remember I received a call from Andy. I'd worked with Z at Chicago Urban League when Andy was there creating the Impact Program. And I remember being at Chicago Urban League, and we were days away from Chicago State closing. And I remember going, crap, no, this can't be happening.
Can't be happening.
So fast forward, Z is there now. They're trying to move in the right direction. Andy had joined. And the opportunity came, and I was like, oh, I want to be a part of this. This is legacy work. I'm at the point now where I go, there are fewer years in front than behind. It's not me being like maudlin. It's basic math.
Okay, well,
I don't know that I'm living to be 100.
Well, no one would know that you weren't under 30, but
You're
go
a
ahead.
good person. I love you to death. But going there and being there during the pandemic and sitting with, I remember being on the phone with Z, President Scott, and saying, we've got to do something. We're going to create the RISE Academy. We've been talking about it, where we pay for your entire first year, give you a leg up. And I remember her and I on the phone, and she said, well, how are we going to do this? I'm like, I don't know. But if we have Barack Obama our way, dollar for dollar, penny for penny, we're doing it. And to watch those young people cross the stage, some of them have been on our air here, was the joy of my life.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say I was not looking to come here. And the first time I had the conversation with the recruiter, it ended with, so you love where you are. I'm like, I do, but I wish you the best on the search. I'm a big fan of community access, and it's a challenging time right now. Good luck. Months later, about 5 months later, he reached out again. And in that moment, something said to me, take a step back. Go back to your original dreams and all of the things that you had been working for, those pathways that you never thought were yours. Maybe in a time such as this, it's that time to revisit. And I tell people, to shorten the story, I think now of almost saying no, and it makes me shudder.
You almost didn't take this.
I almost didn't get to be a part of this, and that was before we got to where we are this year, knowing how incredibly important it was going to be to have this platform, this electronic town square, where there is room for a Robin Robinson and a LaDonna Tittle and Andy Zopp and a Wallace Gator Bradley.
And Miss Smith, the cookie lady down the road, if she wants a show.
And she can have it.
Exactly.
So the power of that, to your point, you're here because you were always about storytelling. Even when you were doing news, there's a trust that the community has in you. So there is important to have a Robin Robinson that sees the value. I'm just saying this, that you see the value as much as Miss Smith, because that's community.
Yeah. No, and trust is, as we know, we're at a crisis point. Yeah. We really are. Yeah. So we keep saying, this is your platform. You have access. The community has access. Can you tell me exactly how does that work?
You can call us, and I just said this to someone. You want a show, You live in the city of Chicago, you call us. We will say to you, hey, become a member. Membership has its privileges. Membership is $100. Can't afford that? We've got scholarships, free or low cost. You come in, we'll see what your skill sets are as far as digital literacy. We train you. And then this state-of-the-art equipment you're seeing in this studio that we made an investment, a capital investment, one of the first things that I did when I joined the organization. Everything you see in here, you won't see better at ABC7 or NBC5.
Take my
you
word
may
for
actually
it.
see
Take my word for it, because there's sometimes it's a little old,
because
you know.
it's important to us. We are a nonprofit. If we are going to say to our community, we want to help you tell your stories, you deserve to have the best and excellence in doing that. So once you've gone through your training, maybe one training or a series of workshops, you can check out the equipment. And I say to folks, including our young people, and every time I say this, our team kind of goes, oh, I go, don't be afraid to break it. It's insured.
Okay.
I mean, don't break it. But I want you to touch it, feel it, check it out. So we have a production services department. So once you sign up to be a member, we see where your training is, we give you training. Then you go over to production services, our programs department. You can submit your own shows, or you can check out our equipment. This studio where you produce your show, we do our original programs, which are just 10%. Original shows like in the Other News, In the Money, Months and Tonight, that's 10% of our programming.
So the rest is community.
70% of that is community, 20% is nonprofit. In Studio B, our nonprofit partners produce programming all week. So that can be gargantuan organizations like YWCA or very small 501c3s. All of that is happening in this building every day, 6 days a week.
What a resource. Let's say you're a small nonprofit, you'd like to get your story out there, you know, maybe you barely have a website, right? But then you got to have some content for it. You're not going to go buy cameras or contract with a production company. So it's like bypass all that and have an excellent outcome as part of service to community. So that's what community access is.
And we talk about this. You'll hear the term PEG, public education government. Those terms are accurate, but they don't, I believe, accurately describe the verb, the active. So that's where you will hear, every time you hear Robinson tag, it's experience the power of community television. It's active. It's all of us coming together. It is that African proverb upon which I build every day here. Until the lion tells the story, the hunter is always the hero. And that means there is power in us coming together, you sitting with Coco. And I'm watching that both in the studio and then at home going, that's just not a person who did her time. That's a mother and a gorgeous, glorious human being.
And a community force.
And a community force, and there before the grace of God. You know, so part of the absolute critical importance of community television now more than ever, technology has been wonderful, but it has created isolation. It has created an anonymity that allows us to treat each other as others, not human beings with feelings and families. So part of what we're doing here is going back to old school. That is modeling the behavior, how we can disagree without being disagreeable. How we can sit, there's power in me looking in your eyes, having a three-dimensional conversation. Because if I disagree with you, it's not Robin's a horrible human being. I disagree with Robin, but that's a human who makes me laugh. She's funny, she's three-dimensional. That is why what we do is so important, because otherwise it continues to be us against them, and we don't even know who's who at this point.
Everybody's an other.
Everybody's an other.
Yeah, because
and it's easy. It's easy to do.
Especially easy to do with the anonymity of social media. And some of the things on social media are so clever, but I like it when people own their content, i.e. this is me,
on it.
This is mine, I said this.
I said what I said.
You know, right, because then you think about it a little bit more, and sometimes you realize, okay, I can not argue with that person because we're never going to agree.
Never going to agree.
That happens.
And that's okay.
I'm not going to waste my time on an argument. But I think also that we are being inundated right now with every day there's 10 lead stories. Since the inauguration, let's be clear, and some people think that's part of the plan, so to speak, is that we become, that's an important story, that's an important story. It's also important that I can't do anything about it. And I do think that trusted sources, not that everybody's going to have, the broadcast of records, so to speak, but there are jewels and gems and genius in our communities.
Absolutely.
So how is that working out for you?
It's working. I'll just give you the numbers.
Okay.
As Jay-Z says. When we began this, when I joined the organization, we were saying that we were watched by, among our 5 stations, we had the reach to 1 million. One of the problems we saw for was distribution and reach, and that was to launch. When we launched these original programs in September of 2022, okay. I now remember, it was 2022, we also launched a new interactive website and went streaming for the first time in our 40 years. Now, the great part of that is from going to, we think we have the capacity to reach 1 million households. We now can tell you that in 2023, we were viewed by 34.4 million viewers, but hold. And then 2024, as other stations are, flat is the new high, we grew 45% to 50.2 million. I can also tell you that January that just started this year, thanks at a time when it is absolutely critical that we have programs on the air, when all of the information came down about the federal freeze, we were on the air. I had the privilege of guest hosting for Andy, and with our journalists and nonprofit partners, we were sitting there going, is this by design, the chaos? What do we do? Instead of just all of this, because we don't need to bleed at leads. We can have community conversations. We can have a conversation that lasts for 2 minutes at a level of excellence, first doing no harm. But our job, and I remember sitting there going, I am so grateful that in this moment, we can sit here, community, and have this conversation together. Because no matter what your leanings are political, we can all agree this is going to impact all of us in ways we have both recognized and have yet to recognize. To sit here in that community and to talk with our audience, we're all finding this out together. Our job is to bring you information, bring you voices from your community, folks who are in the supermarket with you, and do this together. Have this conversation together, but to calm us all and go, let's all take a step back. What does it mean to bring on nonprofit partners that we can go, all right, we need hope. What are you doing? How do we support what you're doing? That's the conversation. It's not just breaking news. It bleeds, it leads.
Right. And to be honest, the organizations that are serving people in need are disproportionately having to serve Black people,
Absolutely.
Black and brown. I mean, this is life in America. That we'd like to turn those numbers around, and knowing who you can count on, or what you can count on, or do we just need to count on each other, is important. And information is power. I hear that now on all the mainstream. Media stations, but it used to not be. So,
and again, I'm going to say, just like some of the folks who we named on our air. Just again, for our information, here's what we believe at CanTV. Because we are part of the communities we serve. We are smart, degreed or not degreed, we are smart. I don't need you to tell me how to think. What I need is for you to provide information and resources. I can make my own decisions. Ours is not to tell you what to think. Ours is to do it together, to lean into each other. And we don't think everything is breaking news. And
nothing that they say is breaking news is breaking news anymore. They've destroyed that saying completely.
It's been broken. So, but
breaking news from last week.
Or breaking news. It's sunny. Okay.
Right.
We've jumped the shark, but I think part of what we're doing and that you're helping us to do is really to get back to, I am grateful for my age, because I do remember a time where community, the water cooler, the conversations with each other, where you wanted your thinking stress tested.
Try it out.
Where you wanted to try it out, where debate mattered. So to do this, and I hope that, some of our viewers have reached out, I hope I serve as a proxy for viewers when I sit and I get to interview or have these conversations. I'm a viewer. I grew up watching local news and community television. Detroit had community access years before Chicago did. Okay. That's where I got to watch Mayor Coleman Young literally use words to the city council meetings where I would go, I don't think my mother knows I'm hearing these words. But it was the flavor of Detroit. It was the city. And that's that kind of, between that and watching local news that was truly local, that has gotten in my DNA. So to sit here now and have these conversations with you, or to sit in here and go, we don't know the answer, but let's bring on experts. Let's bring on, as we did a few weeks ago, Bill Lowry, the commissioner, and spend more than 2 minutes talking about his prostate cancer journey. And then having your urologist on going, what does this mean plainly, not precious, for Black men?
Right.
How is it impacting? To be able to do that, and then to walk down the hall and watch Wallace Gator Bradley, Brother Gator, a former enforcer for the Gangster Disciples who owns his story. To watch that, to be in this building, feel that energy, and then to come in here and watch you as we're sitting in the control room. Literally, your first show, we were like, so this is a master class in journalism.
Oh, you're so
excellence. Look, I said, you know me. I say it plain. What you bring to this organization and the stories that we get to play a part of, letting you tell the stories that we all knew you wanted to tell us.
I just didn't have enough time.
There was never enough time.
Now I do.
Yeah.
I appreciate your DNA is now infused into this whole place, and it's quite contagious. And I appreciate the opportunity, and I cannot wait to see.
Are we out of time?
Yes, we're out of
Oh
time.
my gosh.
Okay, how do you run out of time on CanTV? I can't wait to see what's next. Darrious Hilmon, Darrious Hilmon. I mess up your name one more. Executive Director of CanTV Community Access in Chicago. Right after this break, I'm back with this week's edition of Robin's Nest. That was his idea. Stay with us.
Every community has a story, a pulse, a voice waiting to be heard. At CanTV, we bring these stories to life, from the heart of Chicago to your living room. Join us in supporting hyper-local television. Your backing helps us cover what matters directly in our communities, unfiltered and upfront. Help tell the important stories of our communities. Become a program underwriter today.
So cool to share this conversation with Darrious Hilmon, the executive director of CanTV. You know, I run into him all the time. I'm here every week, but these are questions I never got to ask him, so I hope you found some insight there. I knew I wanted to be in television news from a very young age. My father was a writer. He was the West Coast editor of Ebony magazine. He also wrote books with people like Sidney Poitier, Arthur Ashe, Maria Cole, the widow of the Nat King Cole. I was more interested in being on camera. Felt like the moving pictures and the performance of it added to the impact of storytelling. I was a bit of a ham. I never shied away from a stage. But as I grew in my knowledge of the power of storytelling, I realized that I could not settle for being a news reader. I needed to focus on being a news reporter. So by the time I achieved really was a dream of being an anchor woman, I was already anchored in the commitment to being a reporter first. For many years, most people in my business thought going to the network was the ultimate success, a big step above what we called a local yokel reporter. A national audience, more important stories, more respect, more power, better pay. Now, though, there's a feeling, and a movement really, that disconnecting from local news is breaking the bonds that allow audiences to care about what's happening around them, to act upon the information they receive. There is certainly more information these days, arguably an information overload that is paralyzing us into inaction. It's what's happening where you are that you can actually do something about. Recently, one of the biggest names in network news explained why he was leaving NBC. Chuck Todd was the network's chief political correspondent for more than 20 years, host of the iconic Meet the Press program on Sunday mornings for most of that last decade. In announcing his exit, Todd said, quote, "The media has a lot of work to do to win back the trust of viewers, listeners, readers, and I'm convinced the best place to start is from the bottom up, with local instead of national media. This is a ripe moment," he added. "The only way to fix this information ecosystem is to stop whining about the various ways the social media companies are manipulating things and instead roll up our collective sleeves and start with local." You don't get any more local than right here at CanTV. Hyper local, they call it. I hope you will remember that your role is to be more than a passive member of the audience. We invite you into the kitchen to cook up the change you want to see. Thanks for your collaboration. And feel free, as always, to reach out to me, robinsothernews@gmail.com. I appreciate you joining me.